So my first AP class in high school was my sophomore year, and I took APUSH. And I can still vividly remember what it was like to try to do a DBQ for the first time. And what I mean by learning is that my teacher handed me a packet and said, here, write a DBQ, and that was about it. Luckily for me, I'm a history nerd with decent writing skills, and so I just made it work. But after teaching AP World for the last 8 years, I've decided that the sink or swim method to teaching writing might not be the best one out there. And given the realities of teaching and learning in the time of Rona, I thought it might be helpful to have a step-by-step guide to the DBQ. All right, 1 prompt, 7 documents, 60 minutes to win it. Welcome back to the ReCAPPS. Let's get started. DBQ stands for document-based question, and it is simultaneously both your savior on the AP exam and the bane of your existence. On the one hand, the DBQ is awesome because the answer to the question is right in front of you in the documents provided to you by College Board. It doesn't matter if you have a really good understanding of the topic, you can still write a solid essay that earns you points. However, students often struggle with the DBQ for a variety of reasons. 1. There's a lot of moving parts to the DBQ and not a whole lot of time to get it done in. 2. Since the College Board wants to measure your ability to synthesize an answer from the provided documents, the prompt can sometimes feel wild and random. I'm looking at you, relationship between cricket and politics in South Asia. 3. Reading and analyzing documents is hard, especially if the syntax from the period is wildly different from what we use in our world today. So over the next several videos, we're going to work through the DBQ process step by step in order to turn everything into bite-sized chunks. Hopefully, this will help you better understand the process, and once we're done, we can put everything together and have a final DBQ. It's like ordering a sandwich from Jersey Mike's. You have to understand the different parts that go into making a number 7 Mike's Way before you can actually assemble the sandwich. So let's start with the basics and go from there. You will have 1 DBQ on the AP World exam, and it is 25% of your composite score. Note, who knows what the 2021 testing season is going to look like. But to give you an idea of how important College Board thinks the DBQ is, on the 2020 exam, students only had 1 question, and it was a single 45-minute document-based question. Just some food for thought. There are 7 possible points you can earn on the DBQ, and we'll look at each one of these points more in depth in later videos. For now, I want to start at the very, 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 very beginning, which is the prewrite. Students often neglect the prewrite, but I would argue it's one of the most important steps of the DBQ process. The prewrite is the foundation upon which you build your whole essay, and if it isn't solid, your argument isn't going to be able to hold any weight. And it's like I say to my own students, you plan more, you write less. The more thought we put into planning our essay, the less likely we are to end up chasing rabbits by making points that don't actually support the argument we're trying to make or respond to the topic of the prompt. We won't be practicing the prewrite in the normal time limit for now. Just know that by May, you need to be able to do all of the steps of the prewrite within 15 minutes. Today we will be practicing with the DBQ from the 2017 administration of the AP World exam. I've got it linked in the description down below, so go ahead and grab it real fast. Don't worry, I'll wait. Got it? Awesome. All right, let's get started. So before we do anything, before we put pen to paper, before we read our first document, before we do any other step in the DBQ writing process, we must read and annotate the prompt. I stress this every year. I say this a million times, and yet students always skip over it. The biggest mistake that students will make is responding to the wrong question. If you fail to answer the question that College Board is asking, or you answer the question that you wish College Board was asking, you are not likely to earn points. It is so important that you take the necessary time to read the prompt carefully and underline the important information that needs to make it into your answer. So, for the love of AMSCO, please, 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 read and annotate your prompt before you do anything else. Be sure to underline the important words from the prompt that should make it into your response. College Board didn't give you the prompt on accident. It's there on purpose, so please use it to your advantage. Everything we do must relate to the topic of the prompt, so it's really important that we understand what the prompt is asking us to do. And one more thing before we move on to actually reading the prompt together. DBQ questions are always evaluate the extent to which questions. This means that College Board wants you to build an argument. The point of the DBQ is not to just simply laundry list the information from the documents, because let me let you in on a little secret, like, your readers know the documents way better than you do. Just saying. We have to put the documents in conversation with one another to make a cohesive argument. We have to actually build an argument, and the foundation upon which the argument is built are the documents. Okay, so they all have to work together to make a cohesive argument. And since College Board is looking for you to evaluate the extent to which, there could be lots of potentially valid responses to the prompt. The only thing that matters is that you respond to the topic of the prompt and you do so in a strong, cohesive argument. That's it. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's look at our prompt. Evaluate the extent to which religious responses to wealth accumulation in Eurasia in the period circa 600 BCE to 1500 CE differed from state responses to wealth accumulation. So I know that this prompt is technically out of the scope of the course. However, it's going to be okay. We'll make it work. Now that we've read our prompt, let's go ahead and break it down into its parts so that we can make sure that we understand what the prompt is asking us to do. And so right off the bat, I know that there are some things that I would definitely make sure to circle, star, underline in the prompt because it needs to make it into my response. I know that I need to pay attention to the time period. Circa 600 BCE, so that's kind of the beginning of the classical period, to 1500 CE, which is into the early modern period. That's a long time. And with a time period that large, I bet my money that College Board is probably going to embed CCOT elements, or change in continuity over time elements, into this prompt. However, I'm not gonna worry about CCOT right now because heaven help me, that's like the hardest essay and I really don't want to deal with it right now. So that is a problem for future Caitlin to worry about. Current Caitlin isn't going to worry about it. I also want to make sure I pay attention to the regions provided in the prompt. Okay, so specifically, the prompt wants us to talk about Eurasia, which is Europe and Asia. That means I'm probably not going to talk about the Americas, Africa, or Oceania for that matter. You might want to make a quick note about what empires or states existed in Eurasia from 600 BCE to 1500 CE. And I'll go ahead and help you out this time. Here's a hint, it's all of these. Okay, so in the prompt, College Board has also told us what they want us to do in the essay. And it's kind of divided into two parts. The first part, they've given us a historical thinking skill. And in this case, it's comparison. They want us to look at how these responses differed. Now, just as a quick aside, note that College Board will always give you a historical thinking skill to do in your essay, but it's up to you to decide what kind of framework you want to use. So even though they want you to look at how they differed in their responses, you probably could get away with either doing a causation or a CCOT essay. I would just stick to comparison because that's the one that a lot of students are most familiar with, just saying. And they've also given us the topic of the essay, which is state and religious responses to wealth accumulation. College Board wants us to look at the following. 1. States and empires and religions in Europe and Asia. 2. Were similar and or different in their responses to people gaining wealth. 3. In the period 600 BCE to 1500 CE. Okay, so now that we have the prompt figured out, let's talk about the second step in the prewrite, which is reading and annotating the documents. Now, this is relatively a straightforward step. You will want to carefully read each of the 7 documents provided to you by College Board. Make sure that you circle, star, underline anything important that you need to make note of. And note, please don't skip this step. Remember, this is a timed response. We need to make sure we are annotating the documents as we go so that we're not having to reread the document when it comes time to actually write the essay. That's wasting precious time, so just don't do it, okay? Take notes as you go, that way it speeds up the process when you go back to reference the documents. And make sure you focus on what you do understand about the document. It's kind of like the little engine that could, if you're constantly going, I can't, then that's what's gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to do something. We gotta be like the little engine and go, I think I can. And I guarantee you that there is something within the document you understand. Even if the syntax is weird, even if it feels all over the place, I guarantee there is at least one thing you understand about the document, and you should make note of that. Focus on that one thing and not what you don't understand. The other big hint that I have about annotating your documents is to be sure that you're not skipping the source information. Not only is the sourcing information going to help put the document in context, it might provide valuable clues for sourcing later in your essay. So don't skip the source information. So now that we kind of have that out of the way, let's look at document 1. This is from the Chronicles of Zhou, which is one of the earliest Chinese historical works thought to be composed during the Warring States period circa 350 BCE. We should hopefully have a little bit of context about the document, even if you don't necessarily know the document by name or be super familiar with what the Chronicle of Zhou is actually about. First, we should hopefully know what the Warring States period is. The Warring States period is a time of political disunity in China, and it occurred between the fall of the Zhou dynasty and the rise of the Qin. We know from the source information that the Chronicle of Zhou is a really early Chinese narrative work, and if you've been playing along at home, it might be a safe bet that it's actually a Confucian classic. And, spoiler alert, it is. Like I told you, College Board loves Confucianism. Confucianism is a big deal in AP World History, I told you so. Okay, so now that we know the source information, let's look at the document. Remember to focus on what you understand, to put things in your own words, and to circle, star, underline any of the important information that you need to take note of that you might want to use later in your essay. An ambassador from another Chinese state desired a jade ring that belonged to a merchant who resided in the Chinese state of Lu. So the ambassador begged Ji Chan, a Lu official, to have the ring confiscated from the merchant and given to him. Ji Chan, however, refused, saying, "One of our ancient rulers made a pact with the merchants in our state to last throughout the generations. The pact said, 'If you do not revolt against me, the ruler, I will not violently interfere with your commerce. I will not beg or take anything from you, and you may have your profitable markets, precious things, and substance, without my taking any knowledge of them. Through this attested covenant, our rulers and the merchants who live in our territory have preserved their mutual relations down to the present day. If you get the jade ring and lose a friendly state, wouldn't that be a mistake?' The ambassador changed his mind, saying, 'I presumed my stupidity to ask for the jade, which would have occasioned such a calamity. Let me now withdraw my request.'" Okay, so let's unpack this. Remember, this is during the Warring States period, so there's all of these different Chinese states that are functioning independently of one another. There's an ambassador from an unknown foreign state who's talking to an official from the state of Lu, and the official from Lu is named Ji Chan. And the ambassador approaches the official and says, "Hey, I saw this merchant over there who had a really cool jade ring. I want it. You should take it from him." And Ji Chan says, "No way, Jose. Let me tell you why. We had a ruler years ago who made a pact with the merchants of the state of Lu. And the ruler said, 'Hey, look, merchants, as long as you remain loyal to me, I promise I'm not going to interfere with your trade. I'm not going to try to violently take your stuff away from you. I'm not going to try to force you to do what I want you to do. I'm not going to confiscate things from you. All I ask for in return is that you remain loyal to me. If you remain loyal, we don't have a problem. If you don't remain loyal, we can assume we're going to have a problem.' As a result, the merchants in the state of Lu have had a relatively friendly relationship, one that Ji Chan does not want to jeopardize by forcing this merchant to give up his jade ring." Alright, so tying this back to the prompt, we see an example of a state that is actively choosing to not meddle with personal accumulation of wealth. We might want to make a note of that, because it's probably going to become important once it comes time to actually write the essay. Okay, so now that you understand Doc 1, it's time to rinse and repeat for the remaining 6 documents. Remember, reading and annotating the documents is probably going to take up the majority of the pre-write. And that's okay. It should take up the majority of the pre-write. Next time we're going to look at the final step of the pre-write, grouping. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of the recaps. Alright, I'll see you next time.
Do we have the correct pronunciation of your name?
Probably not, but we're gonna try. And if I'm butchering it, I'm sorry.